Hey guys, this is Mauisnake, and today I'm going to be making a YouTube video. It's been a while, obviously. I haven't even made a podcast for a while, but was working Flashpoint in the last month, which was pretty cool. Obviously a little bit rough in the beginning. If you guys think it was trash point, type that in the comments. Hit me with those comments so we get the algorithm going, because I need a little bit of a boost because I'm going to be getting back into making some content here and there, some videos, and we need all the help we can get because the YouTube algorithm is going to hate me right now for not making a video for 2 months. So what better place to start than finding out what the hell is going on Ancient? So what we're going to be looking at is Heroic versus Imperial, and we're going to be looking at this from Heroic's point of view. We can see the stats right here of who did well. Usually, you guys, I'm sure if you guys have seen videos I've done before, I usually just focus on a single player, their point of view, but but this time I'm going to kind of show like everything. I'm going to try to, I actually wrote down every round kind of who were the most impactful players from Heroic, and we're going to be watching it from their point of view and kind of go through what they're doing round to round to try to understand it. And at the end of the first half, I'm going to break down kind of what I think the common situations were, what I think we'll see more of going into more Ancient games. I know that there's other ones being played right now, but I think that this game is actually tells a lot about really what these teams are kind of thinking is a priority on this map and how they deal with certain problems and what the problems are for them. And when we switch to the CT side, I actually am just going to switch to stavn's point of view because he seems very impactful. He's been in a lot of rounds. Unless he just dies really early on, I'm going to just switch it. I'm going to switch to cadiaN if that's the case, or maybe just anybody I see. But for the most part, we're going to go to stavn, just because he was we don't see much of him on the T side, and it'd be nice to show a little bit of what he does. But this is going to be how Heroic teach us about Ancient. All right, let's get into it. So pistol round starts. We're going to just show a little bit of a smoke that sjuush throws early on, and then we're going to switch to refrezh's point of view. So what that smoke does is it smokes off the front entrance there of the mid area, but this is pretty much just an all-out mid play from the side of Heroic. They're just going for early control, then they're going to try to take care of Cube here, but they die. Showtime takes them out. And now refrezh is just on a heavy lurk. This was supposed to be an A split of sorts, but there was a contingency plan in the form of sjuush and refrezh. So despite the split not working out and that player in Showtime multi-fragging towards Cube, sjuush takes a lot of ground here towards B, and he actually relays that information to refrezh. And you'll see that they make a mid-round base off of that. So I'm actually going to fast forward as he gets a kill towards that site. Now refrezh hears these players moving around. He gets a freebie, and now he tries to actually exercise some self-preservation here. Like, he doesn't just run in and try to go for the plant. He still tries to slow things down, and you can see that him and sjuush are just playing this really long game to try to get the bomb down at A. And it actually confuses Imperial in that they rotate towards B, thinking that the play is actually still going on towards there, but you can see that refrezh is just slowing things down. And because we're kind of focused more on the macro elements of this, I am kind of skipping some of these little details early on, but later on we'll get into the full POVs. And sjuush just gets knocked out of the park. Refrezh thinks that there probably is going to be a player from CT, but just good spacing from Imperial allows them to find the trade onto refrezh here. And I forgot to turn this off as both those players peek him. And we'll see that in the second round here, Heroic, after getting a plant, will actually buy. So cadiaN gets an AK along with refrezh and sjuush, and cadiaN gets the opening pick in this round. Early molly to slow down any kind of pressure towards B, any kind of just rush, which is a little curious because you feel like if you're cadiaN, you'd want to take the fight. Actually, like I don't see why you wouldn't want to actually just have people just push on forward into your AK, but it actually kind of looks like they wanted to set up that 4-man stack that cadiaN turned around and showed everybody, but he just looks for a fight into the bomb site, just a contact shot, and he just has the better gun. Fast in falls, trades the gun out to stavn, and then we're going to switch it to sjuush's perspective because he's been on this A lurk for the entire round. And this is kind of the job of the kind of like the A player on T side on defaults, is just to hold this position. And you'll see on the map that all of these players are just kind of slowly rotating back, so we'll speed it up as they get over to him. Imperial finally push forward to get some information, take down cadiaN, and that allows them to just kind of know what's happening. Showtime's here by himself, but sjuush is just a better player here. And this is kind of a mistake, actually, from refrezh, where he kind of thinks that they're going to plant the bomb, but they just have no utility, so they actually should try to plant before the rotations come in. And this is really just a fatal error from refrezh, probably thinking that someone else can plant as he covers with an AK, but that just allows all the rotations to come in and Imperial just take down TeSeS. So this round is just a pistol one. And you'll see that sjuush just throws some support utility, so I'm going to just show the nades that he throws for them as they go for a really fast B rush here. So sjuush just kind of lines up with the back corner, throws a smoke for the back side over here, and we're just going to kind of show this from the point of view of just everything. The smoke that sjuush threw landed right over here, but the utility from Imperial is just too good. It's really tough to rush this B ramp area because it's just so easy to throw Molotovs there. Like, you don't even have to have a good lineup or throw it ahead of time. You can beat the T's pretty easily by just throwing a standard nade. So in this round, there's a lot of action. This is kind of the first standard round of the game, the first gun round, and you'll see that TeSeS takes some early control towards B, and actually they kind of do a mid pinch in the mid-late round. So that's a miss Molotov, and that gives TeSeS a lot of ground because you'll see right now that the way that Fur is positioning himself, he thinks that Molly's there. Right now, he's totally vulnerable to the back, and you'll see that TeSeS just cleans him up because of that. He sees him right through that, and that's just because of a miss Molotov from Imperial. And Imperial, they don't try to recover the frag immediately, but there's just so much action. They actually push towards the end of B here, end of B halls, thinking that they can maybe, you know, find some space, some control. They take down refrezh, who was holding the flank, and now stavn and TeSeS are actually kind of in a tough situation where they're both kind of just trapped between a lot of pressure. But this is probably Imperial's time to strike, and they kind of miss that opportunity window where they could potentially pinch from multiple sides. And so stavn gets Fasten in the back anyways, but Fasten probably thought that there was going to be a pinch towards middle at the same time. And you'll see that TeSeS just kind of holds this ground here. Not too much, honestly. Just takes his time with it. They're still getting pincered in, but they just fight themselves out of it. And this is kind of like, actually, by the end of it all, a good macro play from the side of Imperial. It just felt like it took a little too long, and that's kind of one of those things where if these teams were a little bit more well-versed, you think that reaction would probably be instantaneous. But right now, these teams are reacting for the very first time on this map, so it's very tough to just have those like split-second reactions. Okay, we lost Fur. How do we react? Okay, we could probably go for a pinch towards middle from both sides of B, and you could see that, you know, it was happening on one side, but not the other. And in fact, you can actually do some really cool pinches where you can send players through cave and you can send players through B main while pinching mid. And anybody that's in this kind of Tetris area, like this is almost like just the hottest spot where you can just get hit from so many angles at once, and the CTs can just get you out of that position. But you'll see in this game that Imperial have a pretty tough time dealing with it. So in this round here, round number 5, we'll actually go to TeSeS. As TeSeS does a lot in this round, as he takes the same position once again, a little bit more passive this time, but there's a smoke towards cave, the molly towards the short side, and then there's just kind of a lot of pressure here, but he uses his utility to try to segment cave there. You can see that it kind of landed at ZQK's feet. There was a great flash, actually, that's down through that actually was a bank throw. So this is the procedure, basically. They are taking control of this first stage of cave by Molotoving off one right side and then flashing off this left side. And there's very little counterplay for this if you're Imperial. What you could do is run 2 players in this position, and I'm sure we'll see that in the future, where one plays anti-flash, one plays just kind of looking. And so the flash that's down through is actually, he got around right here, and it's a jump throw where it looks like it's going to hit this thing, but actually this is this doesn't actually block a flashbang. It goes right through this, and it banks right into this area, and that's why this player was blind, and that's why TeSeS was able to get him. So TeSeS then just holds on to cave and can't quite get the kill, but there's kind of a lot of action going on right now. He uses the flash to try to pressure this position back, but it's actually kind of a feign or kind of a fake in that they really are not too concerned about getting that space back. They lost refrezh towards the B side of that area, and sjuush and cadiaN kind of were phasing out of smoke, and this is just crazy mechanical skill by TeSeS. There's like almost nothing to say about that. He got pushed but just reacted perfectly. And then you have TeSeS retaking cube and just kind of guesses right, looking towards the right side, and that Fur's there. And then it's a one-on-one. TeSeS already has 4 kills on the round, smokes the site to find a plant, and He tries to reclaim cube, which would be a great post plant position given that he planted for that spot, but ZQK just hits a really nice shot, and I'll switch to his perspective because it is a really good quick scope, and if he missed, he would have died, and they would have lost the round. But 4 rounds for Imperial, and then we'll see cadiaN actually equip the op, and this is a pretty interesting play from Heroic in that it's just basically a contact. Despite the fact that nade utility can really slow down anybody towards A main in this position, cadiaN just decides to go for the flat out pick, and this just seems like a really strong play. Unless an opper is posted on this position, there aren't that many spots to jiggle from, and there aren't too many areas where you have to look 2 places at once. And by that I mean, like, think of coming out Dust 2 B tunnels where there is a point where the opper can be hit from like close left and from close right on top of the this kind of resembles Dust 2 a lot, right? Think of like that's back plat right there. Like the way you can think about it is back plat, you can think of the close right kind of car cubby, but then this close left isn't actually that valuable because if they actually swing out very quickly, there's no way for them to get here. But the thing is that it's not really like as deep also. Like, it's very easy to just kind of clear this as you're coming out, if I'm not mistaken about the angles. Like, I don't really see people play in that spot. So it seems like this is just kind of a harder spot to play than B-side Dust 2 in that regard. But you still would play it with one guy most of the time, as we're seeing 1-2-2s as the most common setup. But Showtime gets 1, actually gets 2. And then cadiaN does get the entry into that position, and now he takes control of this deep area. And interestingly enough, Imperial don't really know the timings, and that Fur just kind of hangs out here. It seems like he knew what was happening. I think it was Jay who was casting this game kind of thought that he knew what was happening, but I'm a little surprised too. I think Jay and Dweg kind of thought they knew that was. They thought that Fur knew that, but he just kind of didn't. But this is a cool way that that Heroic handled the situation where they actually try to go for a fake rotate, and you'll see that it baits some rotation here. So cadiaN fakes some running. And sorry if there's just too much background noise. That's also a reason I haven't been recording videos here. Do apologize. And if I just told you for the first time and you didn't notice before that there was background noise, I'm sorry for just now. You're just always going to notice that. But they actually spread the defense because of that. You'll see that Xiao, Fasten, both rotate off, and then cadiaN tries to get the plant, but there's just a little angle there, and there's not really any safe space to plant, actually, in this one. It would be kind of cool if they redesigned Ancient such that, like, it feels like every spot is it's kind of like you're taking B on Dust 2, which is already so hard, but then the rotations are so easy to counter any kind of, like, plant here, that it seems just so hard to actually find a good plant here, unless you do a smoke exec or have a smoke, and I feel like this kind of almost resembles A on Mirage, because it's like A on Mirage is very easy to walk out on and actually find kills, but finding a plant is very hard because you're exposed from always at least one angle that the CTs have sight lines on. So I felt like this was, I almost feel like if they added one more box here or one more pillar, like just add a pillar to the middle of this, I think that would make this a lot more interesting, because as it stands right now, I just think that it's just so hard for a T to have any good plant. Like he planted in the safest spot, and it still had a huge gap for the CT rotator. Like, this is just free for him. So I wouldn't mind them redesigning that A site just a little bit there. Also, maybe just, they could do a couple things. They could open up like some single file way to attack or something like that, like maybe some stairwell or something like that, like a secondary attack route that's just pretty bad, but just it allows some kind of pincer. I don't know. There's a lot of things they can do. But either way, let's go to cadiaN on this one. There's early Molotov towards the bottom of mid, and this is going to be standard from Imperial, and it actually does full damage to sjuush, and you'll see that cadiaN just kind of jumps out in this one, and then throws a support flash for TeSeS to reverse clear this short B position, which is really kind of a unique take on it, because the CTs will want to take that space a lot of the time, but we'll go back to cadiaN's point of view. As they now are just kind of setting up in a mid setup. It's kind of like a passive mid default, or it's not a passive mid default. It's a way you would set up for mid after you already have taken it. There's a couple iterations of this, but this is just kind of what Heroic are instinctually doing, and you'll see that refrezh actually catches a huge flank from Fasten, who I think actually pushed all the way through, which Heroic don't exactly know how to deal with immediately. Like they kind of start re-clearing CT spawn, and then they want to actually go back to B. But there's a double setup in cave here, and xiao takes down TeSeS. Now cadiaN just kind of wings a Molotov into this position. Doesn't actually cover that much ground, but it's a nice bait setup between xiao and Fur. And it was kind of scary. It was kind of scary that I actually think it's kind of weird that xiao decides to smoke the Molotov, because if cadiaN decides to go for that 1v1, it's actually a 2v1, and he doesn't know any better. So that actually takes some sightline away from Imperial there. So that seems like it could be a mistake, but it also is just kind of a safe play, so it's not really wrong either. And this is where things just get really crazy, where this is what happens when you give up mid control if you're Imperial. You give up all this space, and cadiaN knows he has to go for some hero play, so he actually pushes all the way behind Showtime here, as Imperial just don't know any better. You know, they're kind of posting up on the extremities, or so they think, but Showtime is just vulnerable to any kind of flank there. And now refrezh and cadiaN are just set up in a really nice kind of post plant that's pretty much unwinnable if you're on xiao's side. So xiao will, I think, try to pressure this briefly, and he really just shouldn't have any chance of winning this at this point. But cadiaN just holds the crossfire, and refrezh could swing off of him in that kind of situation. I think that's why you're pretty much always trying to plant for cube most of the time. If you can ever get a plant there, like if you ever plant here, this just seems super powerful in that you can play behind the site crate, you can play behind the cube itself. Like this seems like it's probably going to be like the planting for long kind of situation where you just want that space. So round number 8, we're going to go to sjuush. And he is throwing, I think, some support nades where he holds with refrezh in a super passive angle at first. Like, it almost doesn't seem tradable. I don't think it is tradable if refrezh takes that fight. But then they kind of get double peeked here. And I think this is... Okay, we'll just see it play out. I wrote down all the players, but just trying to get this in one go. I'm not going to overthink it. Oh, yeah, okay. So he does throw this Molotov, which clears out this area right there. And I think it kind of messes up, actually, because it lands on a little texture. But basically, at this point, he just takes the site with the rest of his team. They smoke the right side alley. He goes for what looks to be the default plant behind the pillar. I feel like that's just super safe, and it would be kind of nice if there was some cover similar to that. And this is what's cool about what Heroic do here. They make a proactive play to get into CT spawn, and they go for a double swing onto ZQK to just try to find some map control and just make sure that at least one of these angles is covered. And cadiaN takes down a player coming out of cave in Fasten, who probably goes a little bit too early, but... now sjuush and refrezh are in a great post plant position. Even though the bomb isn't directly like in their sight line, they can just cover the whole cross. And so sjuush takes them all down. And that's why sjuush is Hawka's favorite player from Heroic. I think. I don't know. Check out Hawka's channel. I forgot what he said. But round number 9, we're going to go to stavn. But I actually do want to show how sjuush throws some supporting nades for this play. So he'll throw a couple flashes here. This is just a standard flash. And you'll see that the players from Imperial just completely blind as TeSeS and stavn just clean them all up. And that's all just because sjuush throws those flashes over. So those are probably really standard mid-control flashes that you're going to see more of. And they seem pretty hard to see from Imperial side when you watch it from their perspective. So... I mean, I guess people will know that they're coming and they'll know what to look out for moving forward, but yeah. So we're going to see kind of an interesting play. So this is a fake B, actually, from Heroic. It seems like one of the few set-piece plays that they have, where it looks like cadiaN was just actually trying to be a distraction at A, but there's actually nobody there. So this is working just way better than expected if you're cadiaN and co., because they just get all this control for free. He flanks all the way into CT spawn, and this is just kind of a topsy-turvy round where... it's almost like the T's have the space that the CTs are supposed to have, but you can see that cadiaN here really takes his time with the shot, and that's a freebie. And then at this point, there's just so little that Imperial can do because they're just getting completely outmaneuvered in this round. It was kind of a gamble mid/B stack for Imperial. People don't, I guess in scrims, probably don't rush A very much, just like that. And this was just a strange round that just works out for Heroic. So at this point, Imperial are just completely outmaneuvered. We'll see what stavn's doing kind of as he's on the lurk here, but I am going to fast forward through this because this was just a weird 3-2 fake that just worked out way better than probably expected. And See the common save spot for Fasten, it looks like, along with Fur, and really just kind of holding the angle. Okay, round number 11 here. We're going to go to TeSeS. And he's going for kind of a standard mid-control along with cadiaN. But they're smoked off of the angle. TeSeS goes to try to boost cadiaN. Doesn't work. I don't know. Maybe that was something that on the fly they were thinking of, but just doesn't pan out for them. And then you kind of just see that this is like a really passive 2-1-2 setup for Heroic at this point. I'll flip through everybody just so you can see. Like sjuush is kind of holding short, which is the cave push and also a mid boost. sjuush is holding A main, which is his standard spot on the default. Refrezh holding any kind of B main push. And then we've got TeSeS here, who is just kind of supporting cadiaN in a late mid fight. And you'll see that TeSeS throws a smoke. This is for, I think, the left side, and cadiaN throws one for the mid temple. So we got one for cube, and we got one for the temple. And then TeSeS just moves up, clears all the angles out. And this is one where Imperial actually, I think they find some kind of timing here, where cadiaN just does something really strange. Like this just made no sense. Okay, no, it's a different round. Sorry. Okay, no, this is a different round. But TeSeS and cadiaN just trade things out. They take cube, and this is kind of what an A split's supposed to be. You take cube, you take A main, and then you slowly work your way up. And there's still a lot of angles that you have to worry about, but then smoke towards CT, and pretty much the site is as good as yours. The back catacombs there is kind of the biggest worry point in this situation, as you can still get peeked from that unless you smoke that off too, which is why, again, it just makes A feel so weird in that there's so many like positions that CTs can peek you from in the mid round, like on a retake. But there's an attempt there to hold an interesting crossfire, but actually Imperial do a really good job forcing TeSeS back, but TeSeS just plays kind of the percentage game here. The bomb is tapped out. He throws his own flash, knows that it's unlikely they have a kit, and just pre-fire crouch swings, and then counts basically to 10. ZQK has to stick the defuse. A little messy from TeSeS, but he ran into the spray. And TeSeS is still able to convert that one. Like that's kind of just like a passive, like the way I describe that one is just like passive default into an A split, but it's still so messy because by taking this much space, you give the CT so much time to just go for these standard rotations that it's like everything is so telegraphed, which is kind of a shortcoming of Ancient. And I think if there were a set spot to plant, or like this whole area was covered up, just something different, I think like the post plant would feel better because you would just get the bomb down faster, because the rotations for CTs are decent enough, I'd say, that they can take a lot of ground back very quickly. Round 12, we'll look at TeSeS though once again, as he's the entry here on a fast A play. There's nades flying out for Heroic, and he just kind of thankfully dodges everything. Just blind, but you'll see his kind of routing, which is really cool. A little messy, not gonna lie, but they clean everything up. But you'll see kind of the nades here. They wanted to molly this area more or less. They wanted to smoke this cave off, and you see that the routing is kind of like look left, as flashes are popping right above you a lot of the time, like over here, where I am in the air. And then he swings to use the pillar as cover from anybody playing behind the pillar to give himself the best chance of an isolated fight towards this right side alley. And all of that is pretty nice. Like that's just good routing and good, I'd say just a good intuition at this point from TeSeS, knowing that when he rushes that those are the angles that he needs to worry about. And this is kind of the support flash that they throw as they're trying to rush B most of the time, more or less. But I think Showtime just has to save. There's nothing you can really do here. Overall, good round from Heroic once again. And this round's going to be a sjuush round as they go for a fast A play. Fast A play, and no one is really here to defend. But what's cool about this is look at Showtime's routing. He actually went through mid, through cube, back to defend A, which is why you can gamble on this map a sort of like 5 mid/B setup, because it's so easy for the CTs to actually take that kind of routing and still be effective in your positioning. Like, this isn't the best spot, I'm not gonna lie, but it's good enough that you can work with it like in some sense, like okay, if he had counter utility or something, it could have been better. Like I knew what happened this round, but I'm just saying like that's why from Imperial they think it's a worthwhile gamble sometimes to move like that, and so they molly deep into the catacombs, and I mean it's just worse weaponry, and just kind of has good game sense about it with the last kill, or maybe just got a comm from a teammate. And this is a round where I actually wanted to explain a concept that I think has kind of been arising on this map while watching it, is that this is, so basically what happens a lot of rounds is that when there's a lot of B pressure and the Ts actually get an avenue to take B while the CTs, who usually want to hold on to cave, are locked out. And you're going to see in this round how Heroic lock Imperial out of B, despite the fact that Imperial have what is an important part of B in cave. So this is really actually probably one of the coolest like macro rounds in my opinion. So I'll actually show it from this perspective, where you'll see where Fasten and Fur move early on in this round. They're going to both double. Fur's going to double up in cave. There's going to be some utility going the way of short. Counter smokes to prevent any kind of Molotov damage. But this is a heavy B play from Heroic, and Fasten and Fur set up aggressively in cave as they actually do a little bit of a boost over here. And Heroic know that they don't have cave control. They know they don't have that space, and they know it's likely that Imperial take it. So they just do a contact kind of single explosion flash into the site, and they lock them in at this point. TeSeS throws a molly that actually... Let me see. So TeSeS throws a molly that goes right behind Fasten, so he's kind of stuck in this position. There's the flash from Stavn, actually, that actually doesn't seem like it goes deep enough. Wait, does it go deep enough? It actually is behind him in this position. So Fasten kind of fights forward, and Fur actually is stuck here in cave. So you'll see how Fasten and Fur just are kind of stuck here. He takes one down. Stavn just takes his time with the trade, but Fasten actually smokes himself off, and Fur is now just stuck behind a Molotov and a smoke. We couldn't see both things at the same time, but I think it was Refrezh that threw a Molotov there, and then they just layered a smoke on top of that to lock in this cave player. And right now, they only think actually that Fasten is here. They only sure about one player being here, so they just think they have to deal with him as he's spamming through this position. But they double up, Fasten and Fur. Fasten knows that his position and his being there is compromised, like his information, the intel, and so he kind of makes it abundantly clear that he's here. So he's actually going to be very active in this position, knowing that Heroic expect him. And now that he dies, Fur actually thinks that the only way to win this round is actually with a ninja fuse. So you'll actually see that Heroic peel off the bomb site. But cadiaN, he doesn't leave any stone unturned in that he kind of stays around. So Fur just tries to like ninja it, gets caught. But it's just kind of like, this seems like a very common situation where as a T, you will have to worry, like you will actually sometimes give up cave while taking B, and you just have to throw Molotovs, smokes in this direction as you plant behind default, and you basically need players on both angles to actually cover this cave area, or not both angles. Like you can have players on either angle to cover the forward exit out of cave, and then your standard post plants should just cover more or less the like backwards rotation, the retreat. So I thought that was pretty interesting when I watched this game. And then this is actually a good reaction from Imperial, where they lose mid control early. So we'll see how some of the utility flies out from the side of Heroic. They smoke off Temple. They actually they make it abundantly clear that they have this position. They even throw a deep molly into Temple, and then TeSeS just takes forward position towards mid, throws his own smoke to block off Cube, and then what's cool about what Imperial is doing is look at how they're gearing up for this. 2 of them here, 2 of them deep Temple, and they're going to go for like a 4-man essentially re-clear of mid. So you'll see that cadiaN, this is the round where I thought earlier cadiaN does something weird, and he does. Like he kind of just tries to phase a smoke, but he does it with his, like he just walks through it, which is a huge gamble. And you'll see that TeSeS now recognizes that, his IGL's position is, there's a player there, so he's going to hold a really tight angle towards mid. And you'll see now that the mid play comes about, like that everybody from Imperial is trying to re-clear this space. They know that they need something back. They need some information, and so they just go for some early fights. and they're able to actually get the bomb down, and they're able to play a 4v2 out on their own terms. And it's something where Imperial, for a lot of this game, like, I wouldn't say they were necessarily on the back foot completely. Like, Heroic were winning a lot of kind of great late round situations, but it's just good initiative from the Imperial side. I wouldn't doubt that somebody like Fur, you know, calls for something like that, where they're just like, hey guys, we can't play with this little information. We need to actually fight back. And that's kind of a standard half, though. That's kind of showing kind of the key points of emphasis I saw when I watched this demo back and this game back. I actually watched the whole demo first, and then I watched the match as it was casted. And so I thought all of those were pretty interesting situations that don't seem like they're going to be uncommon moving forward. So like I said, I'm going to go to stavn's perspective for most of this, just early on mid swing from him and his team. And he's just going to be quick on the flank, and that's the power of getting early mid control. A lot of angles now that he can work with, but he does get cleared out. And cool headshot angle from sjuush here, but just a big fight towards middle. Oh, I said I was going to go cadiaN, that's my bad. I actually did remember that he did a lot, but alas, this is what happens when I'm on a different setup and I'm not going to edit this video. So we'll go back to stavn here, as he is one of the B players. He is actually one of the cave players, which seems like a place where it's kind of like you put your mini rifler on nuke, I would say. Like, you want a guy here that can handle a lot of different situations, although the thing is you get really trapped at this position. So you have to, like, be proactive enough that you don't find yourself just trapped here. You can't just sit back all the time if you're the cave player. You can't just let them try to come into you. You can't be some troll cave dweller. You actually need to just take a little bit of ground here, and that's why stavn, I think, is a really good player for that position. So stavn, really close middle, just locks this position in. He's got a nice crossfire with cadiaN. You can see that the reason that cadiaN thinks his position is not compromised is because TeSeS has his back towards middle, and then the setup towards A is sjuush going for a little bit of a spot here, and we'll actually just switch to this, while refrezh and him are just kind of holding it with a nade in hand, and sjuush just with a nice kind of headshot angle, and then refrezh with a nade, actually beautiful nade, and then is able to help this out quite a bit. And pretty much an easy cleanup, not much to say there. And then we will go back to stavn as he throws a molly combo with his teammate in TeSeS. One of the mollies gets smoked out, but you can see that it actually mollies out this cubby, so that it gives stavn the confidence to push forward a little bit. He doesn't actually commit, but you can see that if he push forward, he doesn't have to worry about a player like close left on him there. So he just holds on to cave this time around, which I think is a wiser choice given that he has a FAMAS, and you don't want to just take raw duels against AKs with a FAMAS. cadiaN working with refrezh on a boost there, and stavn just kind of bides his time. It was almost a good nade, but there's like just too many random textures here where the nade actually lands in this little, like, what I don't know, man. This is so weird. This is just a weird texture. Like, maybe I'm just a stavn apologist or something, but it is strange that his nade just kind of goes into something that you would think if there weren't this little grate here and it flies into here, that's a bank, and it dunks this guy right here fast in. So, but that's just how this map is. There's a lot of like weird textures. I'd be really interested in the clip brushes. I think every player probably will have to look at those so that they can just understand what is a ramp, what is a stair, like what is a step. Like, there's so many kind of weird spots like that. But we'll see sjuush try to make something happen here, but he dies. So we'll go to stavn again. Actually, you know what? Okay, yeah, he has a P250. His team is doing kind of a heavy cube play. This is so gambly. Like I'm trying to think of what pros are going to do in the future in terms of gamble stacks on this map, and it's kind of like I could see a world where people think like hiding cube and hiding in cave, vice versa, is going to be viable, but it also seems very easy to dodge those kinds of plays by going A main or B main. Although it does seem likely that if you just sit cube for a whole round and sit in cave for a whole round with pistols, like a double stack kind of thing, maybe there's some viability in that, but then you probably need like one player here, as these kind of like trap setups, you know, try to work their magic. But this is actually a late mid swing, I think, from Heroic, but yeah, it's just, I mean, they're locked out of the round at this point, so we're gonna skip this. Good damage, actually, from Heroic, but just kind of a weird fight. Okay. So we've seen Stawn's little Molly combo. cadiaN actually goes for a cave pick here, which will actually highlight as he just kind of pushes on forward, just goes for the contact play. And this is a pretty cool, like, little fight. Like, cadiaN actually is a really solid aggressive opera for Heroic on other maps, so he's probably someone that people are going to be looking at in terms of paving the way, in terms of meta, for what kind of fights are ideal for operas here, ways to force the op down the throats of your opponent. So isn't able to find anything, but he's still able to lock this cave spot down, which is just a nice position to hold. It makes it really just difficult for Imperial to try to find anything, although they gamble stack off of that, and that's why Heroic lose all the space. Although, as Imperial try to retake this space, you'll see that cadiaN makes his way back out of cave, plays behind the pillar, can kind of be seen as like an Inferno pillar, but just so precise is cadiaN there, and he can still lock down the other side of cave here, which is just like, this is so awkward now for Imperial because they know they can get fast flanked. You see that Xiao here he's gonna have to worry about his left after a while because cadiaN can just push out like that, but he doesn't react in time. You know, he's not actually ready enough. But that's why that's like the value in cave right there. Showtime's on a big flank, so we'll show him in this situation. Actually, let's not. Stavn's just in a very solid spot, and there's really nothing for sure. So that's why you need a clear cave, really. It's just like, it's just a huge thorn in your side to not have control of that as a T. That's why you could see that Heroic really prioritized having that position when they were on the T side. They always wanted to get TeSeS into here, and Stavn can now just be a huge, like, ass. Like, he's just, like, he could have actually just swung out mid and potentially just clobbered all of these guys, but, you know, he's a little bit more careful than that. So he'll just go for a reroute instead. You can see that Imperial, they want to actually reverse clear him for middle. And when I say reverse clear, a reverse clear is kind of like the most common reverse clears in CS are on overpass. And the reason that you use that term is kind of, it's a way of clearing a position from like the back entrance. So like on overpass, for example, the way you would clear connector is normally by walking through as a T the lower underground of connector. A reverse clear would be coming from like short A down blue and reverse clearing connector. Like that's what a reverse clear is, and that's when I use that term. Just if in case you guys weren't aware of the meaning of that one. So sjuush in the good location. Just playing, like, this is such a just crazy angle there, and perfect support flash from TeSeS. Overall, really good job by him, but this should be a pretty easy cleanup for Heroic. So Molotov again to gain some space towards that little pocket, and this is actually just a fast rush, so we're actually going to go on TeSeS, because he's kind of holding that cave entrance, and you can see how actually, like, it's actually relatively easy to manage this position. Like, okay, what TeSeS did there was pretty godlike in terms of his spray control and his precision, but you can see, like, how hard it is to clear that spot out, because to be a T, to clear that, you almost always have to be exposed to multiple angles, and you have to run at it. It's very difficult to actually just perpendicular swing against cave, the cave back entrance. Like that is why everybody wants that space too. Like there's so many reasons why it's valuable, and you might think like, it's not the bomb site, why do you need it? But like, these are all case examples as to why it's very valuable. So Molotov for pocket again, and getting the crosshair glitch where we don't see it. But this is a cool aggressive play from TeSeS and sjuush as they take that space, and they don't decide to like reverse clear mid there. They know that the position is vulnerable, and sjuush is kind of holding on to temple here, so just playing a sick off angle. Like, this is just so dirty. Like how do you deal with this, you know? Like, this is just, there's so many spaces, but Fur peeks it perfectly, so he's a god, right? But actually that angle is just really nasty for the most part. Oops, I wanted to show down here. Because they've lost mid control now. He knows that he needs to gain something back. refrezh is fighting at the back temple position. Gets the gun. There's kind of a lot of action that happens here. And this is why I'm not a professional observer. But it's kind of a chance at reclaiming mid. There we go. That's why I was saying, because he goes for the late mid flank. And then, and at this point, really, Showtime's on an island. Like, we're not even gonna really go through that. And so, I don't think this is the last. Is this the last round? Yeah, I think it is the last round. So, TeSeS with a missed Molotov, stavn with his pocket molly, and this is just mid control from cadiaN. You'll see that he's under a lot of pressure, but Battle Offer and cadiaN with sjuush. And look at who threw the flashes. sjuush, who is all the way on the other side of the map. We're going to pause it here so that we don't lose this, actually. So you'll see that sjuush, mega support player, probably the POV to watch if you want to be the anchor, kind of like bitch roll spot guy. Overall, though, cadiaN just did a solid job. He didn't even op like that. I mean, he did op sometimes, but like good rifle work from him on some rounds. TeSeS just entry fragger a lot of the time. But stavn just kind of in that pivotal role towards cave, and that's why I wanted to show his spot and explain the value in that position. But yeah, that's it. Hopefully you guys got something out of this. I learned a lot actually by watching this game, and I think the other game today was pretty valuable too. The one with G2 and who was it? FPX. I kind of saw some of that, but that was like a really big like individual performance from Modern that I think this game shows like a really nice kind of balance with the team with Heroic. Not that FPX didn't have balance too, or like some other players doing stuff, but like this game to me just showed like a lot in terms of what is valuable in terms of map control, how Heroic dealt with that map control, and it feels like anytime there's a new map, you look to a Danish team to try to pave the way for what is the meta of it, and I think Heroic is already showing kind of what they think in their theory crafts is valuable, how they want to deal with those valuable positions, and we even saw some good reactions from Imperial. Like they were no slouches. They weren't just getting completely bodied. I mean, it was a pretty one-sided affair, not gonna lie, but like there was some good counterplay from Imperial, and they learned something. Like you could see that Imperial were getting better on that second half a little bit. Like they understood some late round reactions. So that's gonna be it. I know this was kind of like a different way of looking at the game that I don't normally do, but I really hope that you guys learned something about Ancient here, and I really kind of want to show with more tools. I'm excited for when Skybox comes out on Ancient, like when they release their own map, their own .bsp or whatever, because I think there's a lot to take in terms of the macro here, and I think right now, like, this is already a more fun map for me than Vertigo. I hope you guys feel the same. I know it's not perfect, but this map's going to evolve. Hopefully it gets a little better. I think that there's some ways that I think the rotations should be, like, not so many L bends. I think there's a few too many L bends and kind of T cross sections in terms of peeking out of angles, and I kind of wish those were rounded a little bit more. So other than that, though, I think that Ancient has way more potential than Vertigo, and I'm actually like this. Actually, like, I brought a smile to my face today that I was like, oh my god, I'm watching something new for once. So hopefully you guys feel the same way, and I hope hopefully Valve just includes maybe some new maps here and there. I mean, if they're banning things or if they're removing things out of the pool based off of who plays it, then hopefully they do take out Vertigo next. But either way, hopefully you guys got something out of it, and it was really cool to see how Heroic taught us something about how Ancient is played. So thanks for watching, guys. Know it's been a while. Like and subscribe, whatever. Who's even here at this point? Bye-bye.